So you've opted to go for the bedroom aesthetic.
That's all I've got, James.
I was just what? No, it's not all you've got. You've got the other room. I was just wondering how come you're not in the room.
Daniel will be home soon, and then he'll just walk straight in on me.
Oh, right. Okay. All right. I was just wondering. That's all.
I'll get rid of the cushion. Oops.
Yeah, because that'll make it look a bit more professional, won't it? There you go. See? Amazing. You're going to have to get a green screen for you.
I can always hang something over.
Oh, no, it's all right. I think it looks very sensual.
Will it be deathbed? So I'm on my deathbed doing
There's a few people who would wish you were. Hurry up and die. I don't want to listen to this podcast anymore.
Not being able to speak is not the same as not speaking. You seem as if you like to talk. I like to let people talk who like to talk. It makes it easier to find out how full of shit they are.
What the hell did you just say?
You are the new student. Come closer.
You're listening to the Kung Fu Podcast presented by James Still.
Anybody who has some knowledge of Kung Fu can easily defeat you.
And Steve Newby.
Man, you come right out of a comic book.
If you flash him, even for an instant, a defiant eye, he'll pluck it out. And if you throw any American sass his way, he'll snap your back and your neck like they were twigs.
Right, we're going. Hi, gang. Welcome to another episode of the Kung Fu Podcast with me, James Still. And as ever, my teacher. There. Hello, Mr. Newby. We should do this thing where I reach across and there should be a hand that comes out. Hello. Now we've got the video. Right. How you doing anyway? You've been sort of, out of comms the last couple of days? Or is that because you're avoiding me?
Well, you do realise it's Father's Day tomorrow.
Oh.
And then it's my birthday next week.
Oh. How old are you? How old are you, sorry? What? No, seriously, how old?
I'll be 62.
62? Oh. God. I said, but how old do you feel? How old do you feel?
I'm 18.
Yeah. That's yes, absolutely. We've not matured much, have we?
No.
I remember you said that ages ago to me. Oh, I still feel 18, but I still do as well. It's weird.
Yeah.
You know, I'm half your age.
Mm. Yeah, sure. Bit more than that, I think.
Bit more.
Yeah.
35 now. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a lovely day today. Been out to Pulp Fiction, the cafe in Kelowna.
Yes, that's Pulp Fiction, the
all the books
genre, not Pulp Fiction the film. Because if you went to that cafe, that would be awesome with Buddy Holly on skates and stuff. I don't know. Yeah. But anyway,
it's a nice place.
Oh, good stuff.
Yeah,
excellent. Have you done any kung fu this week by any chance?
This morning I was doing some stuff, and
oh, you're doing some stuff. What were you doing, Mr. Newby? What were you doing?
Well, just bits and pieces, just trying to keep it up.
No, we're talking about kung fu.
Yeah, no, well, I can talk a good fight. So I was...
Oh, did he miss the innuendo joke then?
No, I quickly tried to cover it up.
Oh, okay. Oh, I see. Right. But now you've... Oh, dear. Oh, well. Yeah. I suppose now the weather's getting better where you are. You can go outside.
This morning I was going to go up the mountain. I was going to do an intro for the syllabus stuff we're going to do.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, for the Patreon.
That's right.
And it was raining, so I just didn't. And then we had to renew our contract for the rent today.
Right.
People came round and
right.
You know,
Okay.
and then we went out to Costco to get loads of grub, and then we went to Pulp Fiction.
Oh, great! Well, fantastic. Yeah,
Well, I only get one day off at the moment, see, so
yeah.
So today's that day.
Cool. Well, yeah. The Patreon thing you just mentioned.
Yeah.
Now that's a work in progress as of when we're recording this.
Yeah.
But what we're going to do is just basically do, the syllabus.
Yeah.
Film the videos, and when you go on Patreon, you can donate, and you get the required, you get the video corresponding to your donation, etc. We're still working it out, etc. But there should be some.
It'll be a lot of complimentary information for people who maybe don't get so much tuition, or maybe they may be stuck in a particular way. We were talking about that this morning, where everybody ends up doing eskrima sticks because they got nothing else to learn, because they can't remember. They learn their syllabus and they don't understand how to work it, how to use it. We were talking about how people, even really high grades, can they just don't understand the recipe. So often you'll see people do forms and kind of demonstrate them at a slow speed, and they'll do the same form again at fast speed, but it looks the same except it's faster. So it's it's not kind of utilized. It's in like the sense.
There's lack of evolution going on there.
We always talk about when you're a kid and you learn big A, big C, big D, and then of course your muscle memory kicks in, and suddenly a big set we talk about like that ends up kind of boom, 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 very short. So all the sets become very fast, and they don't look. Sets shouldn't look the same by the time you've learned them. They should act the same, and they should work the same, and they should, provide, what they're designed to provide. But obviously, when they're being taught, they're not being taught to provide the technique in reality. They're only teaching you how to work a specific move in order to, I guess, correspond with someone else's behavior, or someone else's attack, but not in real time. Because it's got to speed up for that. It's got to be accelerated. It's got to be shortened. Not lengthwise, not distance-wise, but time-wise. So it's got to be much more like double writing. You start to become a good writer. Once you've learned your big A, big C, as you grow older, you become more. We've gone over that so many times. It's really good simile, though.
Yeah. I love it. Yeah. No, it certainly makes sense. To me, anyway. I'm not sure about anyone else. No, but it does. Yeah.
Do I make sense to anyone? I don't think so.
No.
That's why they like arguing.
Well, they argue, but just don't hide. Sorry, I'm a bit.
That's where I got my skill. Arguing.
Yeah, but the thing is,
making the point.
Well, yeah, but isn't the whole point of what we should be doing as martial artists now? Isn't it supposed to be like we've got to find argument in everything? And I don't mean bitchy argument. I just mean sort of technical argument. But sometimes that moves into bitchy argument.
Well, I think it's called debate.
Well, yeah. But isn't that the whole point of what we should be doing as well? Yeah. We can say martial artists, but Laugar, our style. Should we not all the time be finding reasons for and against what we do?
Well,
trying
people
to improve
often, we all have our own opinion, and people have their own opinions. And when they talk, as long as they've got the ability to debate because they've got the facts, or they've got what they believe to be, a correct, I don't know, a correct, what would you call it? Syllabus, I guess.
Okay, yeah.
If you want, then people say, "Oh, but I do this because of, and I do that because of," and then, but you shouldn't limit why you're doing it, because every one of your students may be doing it differently, or need to do it differently in order for it to work for them.
Yeah.
But it's not changing the syllabus. It's not changing the movement. It's just changing the use of the movement. Because it totally depends on their speed, their age, their size, their gender, their, capability, in comparison to their opponent's speed and timing and weight and everything else.
The issue is, it's like, if you're talking about beginners learning and their learning curve, this is where it gets complicated, because you've just said that, and that makes perfect sense. But to a beginner, they want to pass the next grade. They need it's not so much. Well, they do need a set sequence of movements, etc. But what you're saying is it's all going to be. There's total room for interpretation. But this is where we can confuse people, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like when I'm teaching people to drive, I always say to people that, okay, because some of them come and they can drive. They drive well.
Yeah.
They just don't know the rules. So they forget to do certain things which are important for safety and important for, obviously, the law. We don't know violations. We don't know, the examiner to suddenly get concerned and have to slam on his brakes or whatever. So I always say to them, okay, it's like the alphabet. It's like the alphabet. And it's absolutely fine. But the trouble is, there's a few letters missing. Yeah. And with those letters missing, you can't read and write. So you understand the movements, you understand the concept, but you can't put it, you can't kind of put it in certain sentences. You can only create a certain amount of words so you've got a very basic grasp of the language. And that's the same in martial arts. They have a very basic grasp of it. And of course, everyone believes that they know it because they are able to pursue that, that language or that direction, but they can't write books. That's it.
It gets dangerous, doesn't it? When as soon as if you think you know it, that's when you should be holding the mirror up against yourself. Yeah, and you should alarm bells going off. Like it's I mean.
This is why we're open to people tell us what to do.
Absolutely. But I was thinking the other day, talking about Lao, like it's something that I hold very dear to my heart, and obviously you do too. But because I love it so, that means I have the absolute right to criticize it as an art. And to find argument in it and against it. And when we talk about, like, when we look at other sort of martial art organizations, and I mean, like, your taekwondos and all that, because I've mentioned before, not all, and I'm generalizing, but not all. But when other organizations are, oh, you're amazing, you're this, you're that, oh, he's great, I love him. If we fall into that trap of slapping each other on the back all the time, that's going to eventually degrade and saturate what we do.
No one thinks they need to learn anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Shouldn't we always be up for debate? And that's pretty much like, that's how you sort of brought me up in terms of
you've got to keep thinking.
You've got to keep thinking.
And finding new ways and finding how it works. Yeah. You're not finding a new syllabus because the syllabus is whole. Not everybody has got that privilege. Not everyone has got that situation where they've learned a complete kind of martial art.
Would you say that you have learned what would you, if you were to rate your syllabus? Now, this is a difficult question, but where would you put yourself at?
Well, that's difficult to answer because, I can't answer that because people have, but I only
that's why I asked you.
I know. I've said this before in conversation, possibly on the podcast. It's for other people to decide. And I tend to rate myself by finding out what other people think. In other words, I watch how other people respond to certain questions or answers and then decide on whether or not they're flawed or they are good. And they have the capability of working and so on. So I judge myself by my peers and then I know whether or not, my syllabus is good. So,
okay, yeah, right. So, but what gives you the right to sort of say, I think it's flawed. It's this, that. Not that you are. Do you know what I mean? Being that,
No, nothing gives me the right to, only logic. So, and they may say it's my logic, but that's why you've got to have debate, because they can say, well, you're not making sense.
Right.
And so you've got to find a way of showing how it makes sense.
Yeah.
If this doesn't work, you've got to find a way that it does. A lot of people just do the movement and then go, it either works or it doesn't.
Yeah.
But why keep training it? If it doesn't work, why are you doing it in that way? If it doesn't work that way, so find a way to make it work. And a lot of people don't.
Yeah.
They just go through the syllabus and go, well, this is the syllabus. It's actually a good syllabus, but I don't like it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because they don't understand it.
And then they add more forms, or
and then they get the Escriba sticks out. Yeah, and start going, right, well, I'm going to be doing it this way. Or they leave the association and start, because they believe they can find it somewhere else. But all they're doing is relearning from someone else who is on the same journey. If they're lucky enough to have a syllabus at all.
Right.
Because often people they go with have just made it up. So, they may have a good persona, but,
When you say they leave the association, you're talking about they leave the BKFA, right?
Well, in my case, if they leave our association, but generally no. Generally, people leave associations because they think the grass is always greener. So they go to these things because they're offered the world. Yeah. But why are they offered the world? Because they have value. But particularly with people from BKFA, where the syllabus has been good, the tuition is good, the knowledge is good.
Well, that's hang on a second. There's a lot of variables in what you just said there, because not everybody is going to have good syllabus. Not everyone's going to be a good teacher.
Okay, well, I'm talking in my day.
Right.
I'm talking when everyone was taught in a much tighter group. And
but even in your day, there was people who didn't really understand the syllabus per se. They were just maybe good.
No, I accept that. That's a fair comment. But there are people that like certain strategies or attitudes.
Yeah.
You have people who really love the idea of competition, but then you have people who really love the idea of just making money.
Right. Yeah.
So then you have people who are totally dedicated to an art, and then you have people who are totally dedicated to be able to teach people to defend themselves, and so on. So you've got all these different strands of interest within any association, and if they don't get what they want, they start to diversify. They start to look for other avenues, and I think it's important for an association, whatever association, to support those people in whatever way they can, no matter what sort of direction.
Yeah,
before they leave.
Before they leave. Do you think?
Well, what they tried to do in the BKFA, for instance, in the 80s, they go, oh, right, kickboxing, we're going to separate it and make it a completely different thing. Because up until that time, fighting was just part of the Kung Fu.
Yeah.
It was just, kickboxing is part of the Kung Fu, but then suddenly they call it kickboxing, join Wacko, and they start teaching it as a completely separate entity with different grades, right? Well, before that, it was the same. Yeah. So this is, there are all sorts of, and that's basically to try to, I guess, sustain the interest of people who would be just interested in competition.
Yeah, but I think can't the strength of Laogai, wasn't it always there going to be from its inception in this country? Wasn't it always going to be like, look, you're doing a traditional martial art, but you're going to fight as well. Like that's the strength. The minute you start separating, well, like we talked about, like the kickboxing you just mentioned, the GY Shu. As soon as you start diversifying, on a business model, that's going to be better because you've got sort of more of a product. But really, when you look at sort of the martial arts, does that sort of detract from the whole?
Yeah, I think it does. Yeah, it diversifies, and but that's always going to happen because you're always going to have people who have absolutely no interest in fighting, have no interest in traditionalism, or have no interest in self-defense, or just interest in one of those, or various other things. Some of them might teach from a completely kind of aesthetic point of view, where they just love the movement and they love the spirit and into the Zen kind of thing. And
But was
well,
that ever like, was that ever meant to be the way that Laogar is to move? It was to be taught. I can't imagine. For me, it's like, why would you do Laogar or any martial art where if you can't envisage yourself applying it? Not that you want to go and apply it, but if there's no sort of I don't know what's the word, bulk to it. I don't know, but it doesn't that detract from the actual martial art itself?
There's no, it's nature. You can't change it. It's just the way it is. It starts with one person who has a specific goal, and he promotes it through, the avenues that are available, and then totally dependent on who learns it.
Right.
Then it's down to them to diversify, or either to maintain it as what it was meant to be, or they tend to diversify into their own interests, which is either, corporate, or it's, or corporate includes anyone who's interested in competition, anyone's interested in traditional. And it also goes by the trait on the day of the day. When you have all these kung fu movies come out, you're going to have lots of people interested in traditionalism. When you have these, Claude Van Damme comes out and kickboxers, you start having that kind of, trait, that kind of interest. And so that sells better. So of course, over a period of years, that's diversified, that's changed so many times. And then of course, lots of people jump on the bandwagon. And then, some people who are not so loyal, if you like, not so held to account, dependent on their influences, dependent on their lack of influences, they will go out, start their own thing. And as they start their own thing, that diversifies. Some of it's absolutely useless and it's found out to be useless. Other people start useless and then end up pretty good at something. And then other people start out pretty good at something and then end up useless because they can't, for instance, people go, okay, well, I can teach traditional Kung Fu, but then they don't bother because they're trying to build their reputation up with fighting. Next thing you know, they've forgotten all their weapons, they've forgotten all their sets, and then they turn around, as they did in Scotland, for instance, and say, the originator of the style wasn't really interested in sets. There's no substitute for fighting. And the only reason he put that on his website was because he didn't remember his sets. So he was more interested in competition fight because he was he was in the A team and so on. A really nice guy, but he had his trait, he had his diversion, he had his direction, and financially it made it really well. He did a really good, he lived off it.
Yeah, but he's not proliferating the art.
No, but few are, aren't they?
Yeah,
few really do. The worst thing is for me is they don't. It's not that the art they lose; they just lose the whole concept of the science.
Yeah,
because they just aim in one direction and miss the science completely.
I would include them both.
Yeah,
the art and the science as one, because I don't think can you really differentiate it? It's one without the other.
I would differentiate it because you can get people who are very arty and haven't got a clue how it works scientifically. They haven't got a clue how it works in principle, and therefore they just make these beautiful movements, and it ends up as like wushu or tai chi. And then you have other people who are totally dedicated to fighting, but they completely lose the mastery of movement. So they don't pursue the movement because they think, well, a punch is the fastest thing. But then they forget that if that punch fails, they forget to complete the whole sequence, which is why when we had Rash on the other week, I loved it so much because Rash wants to take that sequence to another level. He wants to get them to the ground, and that is so important, and that's been forgotten.
Yeah, he's trying to move. Well, we've discussed it, but he's trying to basically, fill in a gap that he sees is there, which I think we can acknowledge is there. Or,
we all acknowledge it, but a lot of people don't practice it.
Yeah.
Even sweeping and stuff, because again, it's down to your facilities, but it's also down to your fear of litigation.
Oh,
so over a period of years, a lot of really good techniques have been lost. And in some styles, of course, where you'll get people diversifying, as we talked about, you'll get them literally panning each other in the class, hurting each other. And the problem is, but I'm just going to say, James, that when they pan each other in the class, what happens is they lose all the decent people. They end up with just morons who really don't understand, just because they're beefy guys. They end up thinking that they're the world's best, and yet they've got no one to test it against. So they go out in these stupid, situations where eventually they're going to get hurt, or someone's going to get hurt. But that's not martial art, and it doesn't work like that.
What do you think is you're a guardian of Laugar, right? What does that? I want you to tell me what that means to you in terms of your relationship to the style, not what it means to you sort of philosophically, blah blah blah. I'm talking about what's your job as a guardian. What does Mr. Newbie, what does Old Man Noobs think a guardian should be doing, and why?
Well, I hoped that the guardians at the time, because there was only 12 of us, would actually have been advisors. And we would have been able to advise everybody else, not just about the style or the way it should be taught, possibly, but its principles, and really be kind of, I don't know, what's the word? Where we're going out and promoting it.
Ambassadors.
Ambassadors. Yeah, for the style, and to do that, you've got to have the freedom to provide that because of what you believe to be, obviously with advice, always, under supervision if you want, because we always talk to Master Yao. We all understand what he wants, but what he wants isn't necessarily a strict regime. He just wants the style to be taught, so that it works and so on. So, it would have been nice to be capable to build an organization that would have a kind of a hierarchy where people would respect that hierarchy. But you're always going to have people who go, well, I wasn't picked as a guardian, or, I'm a great fighter, but no one picked me. It wasn't for that reason. It was because he trusted us to promote it, and he trusted us to expand it, if you want, to create. And I was one of those people that expanded it more than most.
Was it a business decision on Master Yao's part to make people guardians, or was it purely for the proliferation of the style?
It was to help him in the future as he got older to promote the style better and to sustain a level of trust within his closest students, so they would support him in, the expansion of the style. You're always going to get people who are in it for themselves. You're always going to get people who want to argue their points. And I think it would have been great to allow them to argue their points, but unfortunately there were limits. And I think in any style, James, I think in any style, no matter what style it is, in any organization, any association, you've got to have people who are going to be capable of promoting it, on your behalf. You've got to have people you can totally trust to be able to do that in your interest.
Right.
And if you stifle that, all you're doing is just holding them back. They just sit there and watch, and they just clam up, and they don't bother saying anything because it's pointless. There are many things on my part that I suggested that were taken into account. I never got any credit for them.
Is that? Are you? I mean, are you sort of are you blaming Master Yao for that because he's overseeing everybody, or are you sort of saying it was the process of everybody together just simply not working?
It's a process of egos. It's nothing to do with Master Yao. Master Yao he had a vision that he could trust people he put people in that position of trust because he believed that they would be trustworthy. And on the whole, they are.
Yeah.
But there have been many of them that have maybe. No, I'm only speculating because I don't know. But it could be, through their own interests, greed, possible, just simply stifled, unable to pursue the direction that they wanted to go, or it could be external influences where it's nothing to do with the association, but simply that they saw something that they wanted to grasp hold of and believe in, and so they've gone in that direction.
Yeah.
And some of them, of course, have regretted that. I know a lot of them regretted leaving.
Yeah.
But you can't live your life regretting. So they just go off and they move on, and they find one master that they believed in, leave the association, find one master they believe in, suddenly decide that one isn't as good as, and then they start looking around for another. I call them the Walking Dead, because they have absolutely no understanding and they can't come back.
But is like, I mean, I think what's there now? There's 20 Guardians. I think they've had. I think 8 of them have left. Do you think
that would have been all the older ones? I would have.
Yeah. Do you think though that sort of people are? Do you think the problem is the way sort of you've got a group of people who now are all important, right? You're a Guardian. It's what we're going to do. It's your job to do this.
Who are they important to?
Well, okay, I'm asking you, right? So because now everyone's got this newfound importance in this position, suddenly they're a Guardian. Oh, I'm a Guardian. Does that sort of, would that affect them? And would that sort of, be, work to their detriment because they suddenly think they're better than they are, or this, and then you've got a few more egos coming in. But my point was, at the start, I suggested that the minute you've got everyone tapping you on the back saying, you're great, you can't do no wrong, you're brilliant, and no criticism whatsoever, or they shut people down, is that like, that can be when an organization can sort of, break up from the inside out. Do you think that's possibly happened with the with the Guardians now, and do you think
I can't speculate about Guardians per se, but I can say that in general, associations that are run in a similar fashion can always, it's always down to ego. If you're put in a position of trust, and then suddenly you believe that you're better off than the next person, or you're more important than the next person. It's about what you know. But often when associations take on people, they take them on for their own ends, in order for their own benefit. In other words, for instance, they take them on because they have particular good traits, which may have nothing to do with martial arts, simply that they're good advertisers, or they're good publishers, or they're good photographers, or they're good, work with the internet, and they go, all right, well, you can do this and you can do that, so let's, we'll make you important, and then we'll get it for free. Well, that, nothing comes free. So people very quickly, if they're not appreciated, very quickly start to think, you know what, I'm not interested. And then it takes so long. How many times have we asked people to do something, and then you wait for them months later, they haven't done it? Because they thought they were really important at the time to be asked, and they were really honored to be asked. But when it comes down to it, you know what, they're not getting anything for it. They're not getting appreciated. So they just drag their feet and nothing ever gets done. It's much better in reality to pay professionals to do something and get it done than it is to just ask people to do it on the side, because on the side, they're never going to be as good as, even if they do it as a profession, they're never going to do it at the same speed.
Because they ain't getting paid.
Because they're not getting paid. So, and people would say that's a selfish thing. No, it isn't. They've got a life. They've got a living to make. They don't want to spend like hours and hours doing something they'd like to dedicate to, but it's okay to dedicate it to for a week or two. And then when it gets to about a year or more, and you're still doing it, and then what happens is people start saying, you know what, we asked you to do this. Have you done it yet? Why not? Why haven't you done this? and they're going, wait a minute, I'm not even getting paid for this.
Yeah.
Stop bugging me.
Yeah.
And then they just don't want to do it anymore. And, you know, but because they're loyal to that association, they just go, well, okay, I'll try to get it done, but it's never going to be as good. It'll never be professional. And that the big issue with associations, martial arts particularly, is they expect something for nothing and they don't pay back. They don't give back. So when people have got an awful lot of experience in doing something, whatever it is, whether it's that, and generally in the martial arts, whether maybe they've run businesses, you know, martial arts clubs, and they know how to run clubs and they know how to teach people, not just about the syllabus, not just about the ability to teach and to retain students or to gain students and to build organizations. But when you don't, you know, when you don't appreciate what they've done, they just go, you know, I'm sorry, but I've got to make a living. I'm not going to waste my time. And I think part of the problem with the BKFA, you know, if I may use that as an example, is you know, where everyone's supposed to do something for charity. Right. And they go, well, you know, you'll find a lot of people, you know, amateurs will do that. Yeah. You know, no problem. People who haven't got to make a living, people who have got a job, especially if they've got a good job and they've had it all their life and they got a pension, they'll do that. But anyone who's trying to run a business because of their passion for martial arts, and they just turned, like I have, and then they turned into, you know, martial arts tuition as their own living, and they haven't got a pension and they haven't got an income except what they make, then you expect them to give everything to you. You know what? Yeah. That's why people have, you know, that's why we see people leave associations, for that very reason. Yeah. Yeah.
So going back to my question to you, what's the role, in your opinion, of a guardian? You know, how much of this, you know, do you think that you have to be pretty damn good at the martial art if you're going to be a guardian? I mean, isn't that like a prerequisite? Like your job on some level is to carry on the style?
Well, originally it was the top 12 people or so, and I'm sure there are other people that deserve the title, if you want, but it isn't. You know, it's the title that became contaminated. Yeah. Not the guardians. Right. It's the title that became contaminated, because sooner or later, if you do stifle people, if you don't appreciate people, then what will happen is their efforts will slow. And if you complain that they're slowing their efforts and you're not giving anything back, then what's going to happen is you're going to have to start looking for other people. And of course, the pool gets, you know, less and less qualified. Yeah. It's like during the war, you got really good pilots. After a while, you're just training anybody, aren't you? Yeah. So, and you end up losing everybody, because, you know, you're asking the you know, the aces to do, you know, the best job, and you're just not looking after them. You're not, you know, you're not giving them the chance.
Do you think that so talking about, you know, your sort of philosophy on being a guardian, do you think that your job, Mr. Newby's job, is to create, you know, is to be the person who argues the points and, you know, gets people to, you know, you've never been a kind of well done sort of, you know, guy. I've always thought with you that, you know, no matter how good you are, you can still improve, and I think that's sort of your attitude to a point. So does that
my kids hate me for that.
I bet they do. Well, you know,
they do something well and they say that's good, but now let's see if you can do something else. Let's see.
And a lot of students over the years have hated
a lot of students. Yeah, they never appreciated it.
Yeah, but do you think that is that's a prerequisite? Like
No. My passion, as far as I'm concerned, and remember, we're not just talking about guardians or Laugar.
No, I'm using you.
We're talking. I can only talk from my point of view.
I know,
and I'm happy to give my point of view.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
I have nothing to hide, and I'm not, by doing it, I'm not disregarding anyone else. Everyone else has got their own opinion. Everyone else has got their approach. My approach is, my passion was to promote Laugar. My passion was to build clubs. that's why I had 26 clubs in Scotland.
No, but you got to be specific there, because that sounds like, to some people would listen to that and say, "Oh, I was only interested in the money," but some people would and say, he means the art. So
that's right. Yeah, I think we already know it wasn't the money.
Right.
I think we already know that everyone had a better car than me.
Yeah.
The money was shared.
Yeah. I understand that.
And that's why people got greedy. Yeah. In retrospect, I wish I was interested in the money, because I would have, because it would have held people to account. Yeah. And I could have afforded to hold people to account. But in the end, I just, if people left, they left with money and with clubs. And I had no way to follow that up. All I could do is just promote against them. In fact, in the last part of 2012, when one individual left with clubs, I then tried. I knew his students left him because they wanted to stay with the BKFA. But then when I talked to them and they said, "Well, there's a lot of people who want to stay with the BKFA," and I said, "Well, I'll start that club up again." I couldn't afford to do it. I was promoting against the people that had left. With my finances, with my clubs, and that was impossible for me to do. Okay. Yeah. So as far as anyone who believes that I did it for the money is obviously out cuckoo land.
Don't worry. I just want to talk about the arts.
No. Yeah. So I was totally dedicated to building clubs. Yeah. My passion was to promote Laogar, and it always is, and it always will be. Yeah. I love the style of Laogar. I love the fact that it's real. I love the fact that it works. And I'll argue anyone till I'm blue in the face about whether a technique works or not. You tell me a technique doesn't work in the syllabus, and I'll show you how it does. That's why we're doing these podcasts, because when we talk about the syllabus, we promote how we like to make them work. Now, when we train them, of course, we're training them within the environment of a training environment, of course. But we do get a lot of people coming back saying, "You know what, this worked, that worked," because it isn't just about the technique; it's about the attitude in which you use that technique, the environment in which you use that technique, and the opportunities you take within that environment. Yeah. So it's it's not just about, this technique will work, that's going to work. It totally depends on when you do it. Totally depends on what the person is doing for you to be required to do it, and it totally depends on your attitude and your timing when you decide to do it. So, don't say that doesn't work when someone throws a punch, that doesn't work. It's not just about the fact the guy's thrown a punch. The guy's maybe done something else, and you are now completely changing his anatomy. Because remember, he could have his hand on your wrist. You can still do that. Yeah. He could have his hand on your shoulder. You could still do that. That can be smacking the face. It's so many different things.
Yeah. It's like whenever you give an absolute, as I wouldn't do this in a street fight because, or I do not recommend doing this or this technique or that technique. As soon as you say that, but from my point of view, as soon as you make a set in stone statement like that, you have to justify it. And this comes from
well, we talk vice versa.
I absolutely, but I don't ever teach and because you've never taught by saying this will work every time, or you have an open-ended or a abstract sort of
fighting is open-ended.
I understand that.
So there's no guarantee of success.
So we discussed last week about all these stupid YouTube comments from people who are dead set, and I know for a fact that some of these people were at one time very high up in the BKFA and should, quite frankly, know better in terms of their approach to science and their approach.
They left before they had understood. They never understood the science, and they started making their own science.
Right.
They just, which sometimes doesn't make sense.
But I don't think the one thing we've never done in this podcast ever is give an absolute or say this technique does not work. Or this will work every time.
Yeah,
we've never said that once, and we've always maintained that if you can teach us something better, we are completely open-minded, and you are completely open-minded. I am as well.
Yeah, because you can teach. Well, you can teach the same technique to a big guy and then to a small girl, and then you decide whether it's going to work.
Yeah.
No, you can't. They've got to make it work.
Yeah.
Now, the technique should work with both, but it totally depends on how they apply it. Do you see what I mean? And why they apply it.
Yeah.
And you can't, but the most important thing is, if you teach the technique to both people, the big guy and the little girl, it isn't the technique that doesn't work. It's the application of it at the time, the way they apply it, the reason they apply it, the situation they apply it. So they've got to create the situation in which it works. But we know from history that it does work. Yeah. Otherwise, it wouldn't be there.
I think a lot of people don't know that. And a lot of people who should possibly know better don't know that. That's why they go off and they learn this form, that form, that form. Oh, I need this, I need that form to teach me this technique, etc. Thinking that on some level they're going to increase their arsenal, if we use this, metaphor, increase their arsenal, thus making them more proficient. But in actual fact, it thins out what you had before because you're not revisiting. How many times do you still look at the first set, and just learn something new?
I was just going to say, I was going to give you an example, like that movement I just did. That movement, a big guy, someone's going to maybe grab at him and he's able to knock his arm away. A young girl might not be able to, but if someone grabs her wrist and they're able to rotate it quickly, it's very easy for them to change the perception or anatomy of the person attacking them. It's what they do afterwards and prior to it that might make that successful. Not necessarily the technique in itself, because a technique on its own cannot be successful. It has to have an outcome. Do you see? It has to have a successful outcome for the technique and then a successful outcome for what you do afterwards. You can't just go, oh, right, I'm off, which is why, again, going back to Rash, I like the way that he might do something like that, but then straight away get them down, because as soon as you take their head out of its normal orbit, shall we say, and you change their anatomy and you turn their head at angles and you rotate that head or you turn that head, straight away the center of balance has gone. So you're now using that technique and then rotations and so on.
Or you take the leg.
To take the person down. So you take the person down because you've been able to change his anatomical posture, but you had to get to it. So you need those techniques prior and after the technique that we talk about. So it's not about just knowing this move works. It's being able to apply it to a combination of movements. And that's why we have forms, because they're all a combination. But only how many examples can you give in a form? Not that many. And that's why if you look at the forms, you can see form, then you see that same movement applied in a completely different way. And then people go, oh, I'm learning a new set. Well, you are, but you're not. All you're doing is learning a new way of doing the same move for a different reason. And if you look through the sets, you'll see that happening. And then, of course, a couple of additional, and then a couple of additional techniques.
And included with that, extra stances and turns, etc. That's where I think that's what throws people a lot.
Different applications may require different centers of gravity. And different angles, but they're still the same technique, done differently for a different reason. So there's not that many movements you need to concern yourself with. And that's why I'm an advocate of the syllabus up to Black Sash, and then I like the weaponry. But any big sets after that are they're just taking your time up. And Wing Chun is a very good example of that. 3 sets and you're done. Then just fight.
But
I'm not saying all Wing Chun is good. I'm just saying.
No, but the attitude.
The intention of that style was to be capable of defending yourself.
Isn't that the intention of all styles?
Originally, but remember, not all styles had first degree, then second degree, then third degree, then fourth degree, sixth, seventh degree. Originally, when we started in Lao, there was only 1 degree. It was only because of the fact that there was like next door neighbor was a karate guy who was a 4th Dan, and everyone would go to him because they thought he was a higher grade than you, that we started adding degrees.
Yeah.
And now it's just got totally out of hand.
We've discussed this, haven't we, before? Like, you know, the relevance of degree grades, and we kind of touched on it with Rash as well. And
yeah,
you know,
that's why I couldn't be bothered to do any more.
Yeah, I mean, you know, why? How does it benefit you with your experience? It only serves after a certain point. It only serves as a, you know, qualification on paper, because you know as well as I do, there are people who could, you know, get to 1st, 2nd, 3rd degree and have a lot of enthusiasm for it, and then maybe their enthusiasm wavers. They're just in it they're playing the long game. Oh, if I put in, you know, 6 more years, I'll get my next grade, and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah,
all I've got to do.
And they might not be able to use it
exactly,
or understand it.
And the same could be applied to the beginner grades as well. But you expect a higher level in
yeah, but gradings in the first instance are very, very important markers.
Oh, absolutely.
So taking gradings for that reason are very, very important markers, because they establish a hierarchy and they establish a respect, okay, all the way up. But you get to when you get to a black sash, possibly 2nd, 3rd, that's a high grade, and that should be respected. But they should respect the style, and therefore they should give back to that style. They should have some kind of understanding how that style works. And if they don't, you know, they're not really giving anything back.
You forwarded an email to me the other day of a guy looking for private lessons, didn't you? In Hereford, and I've replied to him. I was going to say, you know, this is the problem. This is the problem, boys and girls, why you should take your grades up. Because when he says, "What grade are you?" and I go, "I'm a brown sash." It doesn't sound good at all. But do you know what I mean? When I've got numpty bollocks down the road who, you know, is a master with this degree, that degree, blah, 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 you know, and it don't bode well. But that's my fault. I understand that. But you know what?
We better change that then, don't you think?
Yeah. But you know,
James,
as well as I know,
James, you're a brown sash and you're working on the butterfly knives. You're working on, you know, the stick set, clashing sticks, you know, Deutschat. You're working on, what else? You've done the sword sets.
So how Quan?
So how Quan? You've done So how Quan. Yeah. So
but what I'm saying,
you're the highest qualified brand sash in the country.
That's damn right I am. But you see, but we're talking about perception, though.
Yeah, that's right. But it's not like, in the color of your sash.
Yeah. Oh, I understand that. It's in the.
That's the perception.
Yeah, but the perception. That's what people first see, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's like whether you're, you know, a friggin', you know, 6th degree or whatever. You know. It's
but you see, you can go to a guy who's a 6th degree, and as we've seen, 8th dans in certain styles. And then you watch them do their stuff, and you think it's embarrassing.
Oh God, yeah.
To watch it is embarrassing. To listen to what they talk about when they read from a book, to see what their syllabus means. You've seen it firsthand.
Let me check the manual.
Yeah,
I was like, what? My mate does DIMAC. I'm learning it at the moment, so when I've learned it, I'll pass it on to you.
Yeah.
Okay. But that is embarrassing.
Yeah. You know. And that perception, unfortunately, there's nothing you can do about that.
No.
And when you talk about seniors in an organisation, I mean, and in our sense, I guess in Lao you call them guardians, and you perceive them to be, you know, something of great value, and then it is possible that, you know, a lot of people look at them and go, "Wait a minute, I'm better than you." Because indeed they are, in one trait or another. You know, world champions look at a guardian and go, "Well, you know, why are you a guardian? Because I'm a better fighter than you."
Yeah.
And then other martial artists, you know, other artists may have far more knowledge, and so on. So it's just, and this is where that kind of hierarchy kind of needs to be looked at, and
but
they need support. And I'm not suggesting for a second that the people that got given that, you know, high esteem level of importance
haven't
earned it. I'm not saying that at all. They've been dedicated. They've been, you know, they are dedicated, but they've got to be helped. They've got to be taught, and they've got to put themselves in a position where they can be taught, and they should seek out information and knowledge. They should, where it's offered, they should take it. But if they turn around and they go, well, you know, I'm this grade, or I'm, you know, this status, so I don't need to listen to anyone else because they're not as good as me, like that guy, you know, or anyone who looks at you and says you're a brown sash and I'm a black sash, so I don't need to listen to him. Sorry, but you're going to know a damn sight more than he is.
Yeah. I think as well, talking about sort of the hierarchies of a style, I think another part of it, which we, you know, is like we discussed with Rash, he's innovating as well. And I don't mean that like he's designing a new style, but he is innovating his teaching and his approach to Laogar. And I think that that's something that not many people do.
No,
in terms of
they become stale.
Yeah,
they learn. Yeah, they become stale between grades. They do their grade, and then they go, "Oh, look at me, I'm this grade." And then they kind of become stale in that point, and then they avoid teaching certain aspects. I mean, people have already talked about it. They've turned around and they said, "Okay, I've watched people training. Ask them maybe to help this guy at this grade, because they should know it because they're high grades." And they go, "Oh, I don't remember that." Wait a minute. What grade are you? You must remember it. You must be capable of doing it.
Yes, but
because you teach it.
Yeah, but argue a point, and that's it. That's because you teach it. You said that. Because how many times have you forgotten stuff? Because, you know, I'm talking like irrelevant stuff, like, you know, the sequence in a sword set or whatever, because you're not teaching it. It's not that you don't know it. Like, that is not the case. You know it. It's just when you teach it, it's fresh and you see a sequence.
Yeah, you go off on a tangent sometimes because you're thinking about another part of it. But yes, it isn't. You remember, all forms are only useful to teach the next person within the confines of the uses and the development of that form. Taken away from the form, you have reality, right? And then you act in a real way, using those techniques or using that knowledge. So it is, you know, forms are a vehicle, hand blocks are a vehicle, kick blocks are a vehicle, walks are a vehicle. You can't go out and fight walking up and down the room. That's not what they're about. And you can't fight doing a set. They're not about that, you know. So when you do a sword set, you might forget a sequence or a step, but that doesn't stop you understanding the way the sword works. It's only that you have to remember that in order to teach it, in order to pursue it in a teaching, you know, a teaching format.
I think a lot of people conflate, you know, momentary lapses in sequence for you don't know your syllabus, or
that's
you've
right,
forgotten
that's right.
it.
They do.
It's totally not the case. How many times do you reckon Master Yao has forgot stuff?
I've watched him forget things. I've watched him forget the Fei Long Chi in a brown sash.
To be fair, he's got a lot.
A lot to remember.
Yeah. To be fair, but so have you, and so have other of your, you know.
People forget things. It's not a big.
No,
what's the big deal? I've watched. I've seen. You know, John got smacked on the shin by a sword because he forgot to move, and you know, he smacked right on the shin and it hurt, and he went, "Oh, my fault. I forgot to move."
Ooh, for the greater good. Sorry, that's something else.
I love him. I love him. I love him. I love Master Yao. I think, you know, but everyone's a character.
Well, I know you do. I know you know.
The freedom to express yourself is important to me.
Yeah, it is. Know, the freedom to express yourself. Now, you know as well as I do that you've had some messages from people. I'm not going to say who, but basically saying, "You're a guardian. You shouldn't be talking like this." And, you know, but I
Okay.
say because you're a guardian, you need to be talking like this.
Yeah. Well, I
It's
say,
your duty.
if you're not a guardian, shut the up. So that was just that was off the cuff. I apologize to younger readers.
Yeah, well, we are a PG podcast, allegedly.
Allegedly.
I think
I they're entitled to their opinion. Of course, if they don't feel that I should speak my mind, that's absolutely fine. They don't agree with me, that's absolutely fine. But they're speaking their mind now. So what the hell? Is that like double standards or what? You shouldn't be talking like that. Well, what's that's your opinion.
Yeah.
Well, I talk like this because this is my opinion and I'm giving it.
Yeah.
And if I want your opinion, I'll give it to you. Sorry. I'm quite happy for people to argue the point. But
no. But you're not closing yourself down to criticism. But it's got to be a two-way thing, right?
You've got to be a politician, and politicians have to stand up and they have to say their piece, irrespective of what people believe, irrespective of what if people disagree with them. Yeah. It makes no difference because that's what politics is, and that's how it works.
Yeah, and that's what I was sort of saying at the start. Yeah. When everybody is patting each other on the back and telling them how good they are, and everybody's agreeing, nobody's sort of
nobody advances.
creating friction. But I don't mean creating friction for the sake of creating friction. I'm saying you need, because it's different points of view. These need to be acknowledged, and like you said, no one advances because your job is. I'm not telling you what your job is, but your job is to hold a mirror up to other people.
Yeah,
and their job is to hold a mirror up to you.
It's to question and it's to debate.
Yeah,
it's to believe and it's to prove.
Yeah.
Okay. And if I can't, I'm speaking in the only way I know how, honestly, and I can't just be polite to everybody. I mean, as you say, when Rash came on, he had an opinion, and I had an opinion, and we differed. But that doesn't stop us from being friends. We're good friends.
Yeah.
That doesn't stop us from being, totally at odds. Yeah. With the same syllabus sometimes, but that's because we teach differently and we have different opinions and we have different.
But that's the beauty of the diversity of Lao.
Yeah.
Like to a certain point, you've got to have everyone on the same page. Like everyone's got to have, I don't know, a foundation. But then from that foundation, you'll get different. But as long as you can all kind of come together.
But you can look at a lot of history books about the same point in time. And they will all have a different information. Yeah. What you got to do is you got to cross-check those. You got to collate those, and you've got to come to a conclusion of your own based on the evidence, right? And it's important to create a situation where everyone has got the evidence. No one's got the evidence when they just say yes, sir, right? No one's got the evidence then. So the only way you're going to get evidence is to argue your point. And to make yourself heard,
and keep and all strive for an argument. Like I remember in one of your syllabus books, it said something like, for every technique you must find an argument for and against it. And I was like, that's brilliant. Where else did you find this? Yeah, and I'm not saying it's not out there, but I'm just saying it's that philosophy that's where you begin as a beginner with you.
Yeah, that's where it either suits you or it doesn't. But you know what? It might not suit you for years, and then suddenly you click and think, you know what? I could have used it like that. Or one day you might do in some training and suddenly find that you have done it like that, and you go, wait a minute, so that's how I can use that technique.
Yeah.
That's how it suits me, right? It's not the way I was taught. It's a completely different use, same movement, exactly the same movement, but for a different reason, which is why you have the same movements going through the sets, just done differently for different reasons. And I'm sure we're going to get a lot of mail going, well, tell me of one movement that's in all the sets.
Just look.
Take a look.
Eyes. Excuse my friend. I've got to mark that for a swear.
You're going to have to start. Yeah, you're going to have to start putting some. And don't forget my word as well. You got to take me out of that as well. You got to.
Shit. Oh, there's it again. Oh, it's again. No, I'll leave it. The S word is fine because we get away with a few in a PG film, but
Okay.
I forgot. I forgot to write down the time when you did your F bomb.
Well, I'll just go back 10 minutes.
Means I have to watch it again. Yeah, between them times, that's all right. And somewhere in between. Yeah, no, it's. But what grates my, what grates me is when you've got sort of absolute statements, and we all know that martial arts is abstract. I think, and I don't mean like that as a. What I mean is, it's always going to be open to interpretation depending on the person, depending on the skill level, etc. That's what I mean by abstract.
And the knowledge,
and the knowledge, and I just think that as soon as you make it's like when you go on YouTube and you watch all these videos on this is how you defend against a hook punch. I can use this technique here and like I understand they're examples of what you're doing, but I showed you one the other day, and
which one's that?
The one where the guy says you can't fight people, you can't fight their fight, so you can't box a boxer, you can't grapple a grappler, but but I'm going to defend against the hook punch, and the first thing he does is get in boxing range. It's it's like you're talking shit because you've got no concept of your distance.
Straight away he gets in the range. But the thing is, I've seen that on another video. So he's just, you see all these things on YouTube, and they copy them and they interpret them, and that's where they get their information from, and they learn it from different pieces of the YouTube from different martial artists, and they go, "Oh, I like that. I'm going to write that one down. I'm going to do that. I'll demonstrate that one." And unfortunately, it's one way to learn it, but it's kind of. You don't digest it like that. So what you're doing is passing it something on that you never would be able to do. And in that situation, when he demonstrated, he's doing a jab, so I'm going to do a hook. Let's see how fast you could do that. The guy stands there at that range. That jab is going to get to you before you even see it, right? Depending on, so you can't stand in that range, because if you stand within that range and then wait for that jab, you're going to get hit. End of story. So you've got to be out of that range. And you've got to completely change the way that guy fights. You cannot stand there and let him fight in his way. If you know he's going to box because he's got his hands up like so or whatever, straight away you got to do something that's going to completely change the perception of the fight. Because if you just wait for him, he's a boxer, so I know he's going to jab. So let's wait for him to jab, and then I'll do an elbow against his fist, shall I? Well, no, you won't, because he's not going to jab. He's going to do at least 3 techniques within the period of millisecond. He's going to go jab, bam, whack. He's going to do everything as fast as he can. If he's anyone worth his salt. But don't come with that crap.
Yeah, absolutely. It's ludicrous to a point. But, and I say to a point because they could argue that the hand blocks and the kick blocks in Lao Gar, they're just the same. You wouldn't do that.
That's right. That's
right.
Do you see we talked. Yeah, I agree. But we talked about that. We talked about depending on the situation, depending on the partner or the attacker. We talked about what do you do before it or after it. We talked about everything is diverse,
and that's exactly the point. That we talked about that. But when this person is doing demos on YouTube, it's an absolute. It's set in stone. It's doctrine.
It is.
Do this, do that. It's like, whoa, okay.
We can't do that. No. We have to
But
respond.
that is his business model. That's what he's gonna, and that's how he sells stuff. Whereas you, I think, are going to be you're going to advocate. This is you're going to suggest the why this technique could work as opposed to this technique works. You're not saying it is, but you're not saying it's not.
Yeah, but you see, looking at that, the model itself, the elbow to a hand or a fist is going to hurt the hand. Yes, I don't disagree with it. The only problem is it's not about the technique. It's about the timing and the perception of the technique. It's about the reaction and response time. It's all about the fight. It's not about the technique. And if someone is going to stand up like that and you're going to wait for them to throw a punch, don't when they're a boxer. Why haven't you kicked them? Why haven't you picked up a chair? Why haven't you, thrown sand in their face? Why haven't you poked them in the eye? They're going like that. You know what I mean? Why aren't you just quickly do something? Why aren't you, trying to change their perception of the fight?
Yeah.
Because they have an intention to fight. The second they have an intention to fight, the fight should have been over before they got to, set themselves up. So self-defense is not about standing in front of someone and waiting for them to do a technique. That's training is like that, but you got to change that. That perception has got to change, and that can only come with fighting experience and responding. And of course, when you get in close, many people are very, very good martial artists, but very, very few of them have the right understanding of perception or psychology of fighting. Some people just never have that psychology of fighting, and it's that millisecond that they think about it, because it's not in their psyche. That's when they get hit, because they're not even thinking.
Feel. It's like a finger pointing to the moon.
Yeah.
Can't say.
Yeah, you got to respond.
Yeah.
And it's not always easy.
Yeah.
It's not always easy.
No.
There's a mode you can be arguing someone, and then your mind goes off into a blank, oblivion. But you've got to make sure you have you can't just. You've got to have peripheral vision. You can't just be focused, because that's when you get hit. Simply because of the fact that you're focused on the person, but your mind does go into a day. Your mind does go, you know what? I've had enough of this, and this happens in a millisecond, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I've had enough of this. Bang, and you've hit, and you didn't even know you'd done it, and that started the fight.
It becomes an automated response.
But you can't be focused on the hit. You've got to be focused on the defense.
Yeah.
Because that's sucker punching.
Yeah.
They'll get you. Even an idiot will get you, because you're just looking directly at them. You're focused on hitting them, and it's too late.
Yeah.
So you've got to have range. You've got to have, decision making beforehand, and then just switch into overdrive. And the only way you can do that overdrive is by training it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Absolutely training.
But this is nothing to do with competition fighting. It's nothing to do with it.
No, competition fighting teaches you because it's
timing and speed, speed, technique.
Speed,
but some great competition fighters wouldn't last 5 minutes in a reality.
The attitude to a point, to a point, mind you, can translate. But don't forget, in competition fighting, you're already in the fight. It's a safe environment. You don't have the doubt and your mind, the environment, if you like.
There's no emergency. There's no emergency. Initially, there's no emergency. Within the fight, there's emergency.
Absolutely.
Within the fight, there's rapport. There's reaction and timing and so on. But at the beginning of the fight, you're setting each other up.
Yeah.
So, but in a real situation, you may not have that opportunity. That's the work. That's the difficulty of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when people say, I'll fight for real, anyone who believes that they're better than me is a friggin' idiot, because there is no guarantee that they're going to make themselves look so stupid. And we've seen that so many times with these people that say, I'm going to go fight, Kung Fu's the best. I'm going to go and fight this MMA fighter who constantly trains just for fighting. Whereas you train your weapons and your sets and your sticky hands and all this, and half your life, you're teaching. Yeah. And then you go to this fighter who only fights, only trains for stamina, only trains to get hit, and you think that you're going to beat him. No, you're not. You can't put yourself in his environment and expect to win.
The problem is a lot of people nowadays, this is the problem with their perception of traditional martial arts. They see it as as irrelevant or sort of obsolete, because you spend all this time doing the forms and sticking you're not fighting, because their perception of whether or not what they do works is purely dependent on, does it work in the octagon or does it work in the boxing ring? And it's like, I think that's, there's to a certain degree that's true, but there's so many things wrong with that.
But the preparation for the fight is all psyche. Yeah. They're all psyched up. They're all getting in the ring. They're all, you can see they're psyching themselves up.
Yeah.
They're not going to do that in a pub.
No.
right? They're in a pub, someone's glasses them in the face. They're as vulnerable as everyone else.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You know, so don't be, you know, going, you know what, I'm going to do this, I can deal with that. It's violent.
Yeah.
Fighting is violent, and it's a matter of, you know, luck. It takes an awful lot of training to get.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, that's the unknown element in the luck.
Yeah, yeah. So it is, you know, we can talk about that all we like, but you know, and there's always going to be, you know, amazing fighters who turn around and say, you know what, I could beat anybody. You know, how many fights have they lost? And they are going to lose.
Yeah.
And then they're going to get old, and let's see what they do then.
Yeah.
You know, they're always going to have something. They're going to be better off than the general public, but there's always someone that's better than you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know, it's the position, it's a situation at the time. Not you're not the best in the world. You're only the best because of your last fight, which happened to be a world championship.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, that's the way I see it, because someone comes along and then just betters you.
Yeah.
You know, or you grow old and then they better you. You know, it's just the way it is. Or you meet some in the pub and they better you.
Right.
It's an accident.
Mm-hmm.
Violence is an accident. You know, fighting is an accident. You know, it's just something waiting to happen.
Right.
So that's my opinion anyway. I can't, you know.
Oh, you know,
I'm not a fighter. So.
That's why we're here. Like to hear old man Noob's thoughts.
Well, they are just my opinions.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Right, okay. Let's talk about. Can we do kick blocks? 5 and 6. I think that's what we're on. 5 and 6. Yeah, kick blocks 5 and 6. What do you think about them? What, you know?
I mean, again, they're just vehicles. So you have got your right foot forward, and you're going to attack with your left leg first, which altogether is unusual.
Yeah.
Okay, but it's just simply to diversify the way that people train. Okay, and it's not as if it's been added, you know, to make a left-handed side. Typically, it's a left kick is unusual. So you are going to move back. You're going to strike at that leg, and that is a strike. You are trying to strike it. Yeah. And then the next time you're going to strike it again, just like number 1. And as you do so, then a fing joy. Does everyone know where a fing joy is?
Fing joy?
Fing joy. Yeah, knock on the door.
Whipping punch.
Yeah, like
a lot of people. Well, we're skipping ahead. A lot of people. Yeah.
Yeah.
Bits here. I was like, oh no.
Yeah. And
what we're talking about for the listeners is your first knuckle, right? Some people think the whipping punch is hitting them with that first knuckle, but if you're
just spraying every one of them.
You're just going to spray.
Just spraying every one of them. Yeah.
It's going to hurt.
And the energy comes from that.
Yeah.
So it's about these knuckles.
Yeah. The second knuckle.
So it's like
as well.
It's the opposite to back fist. Back fist is those knuckles.
Mm-hmm.
Fing joy, spinning punch is those knuckles.
See, a lot of people think that the fing joy, the spinning punch, is a phoenix eye fist. They go like
Do
that.
they?
Yeah, I've seen that a lot in that kick block. And I don't know. No.
It's not. No.
No.
Oh,
they just go like that.
Oh well, that's.
Yeah, they're just like then, you know.
Well, that's not fing joy. So.
Oh, I know it's not fing joy, but I'm just saying.
Again, we always talk about diversifying or making choices, but if you're going to teach it,
that's not a choice. That's a completely different technique.
Yeah, that's right. It is a totally different technique, and it's no harm in you practicing it. But if you want to keep to the same syllabus, then there is harm in you teaching it.
Yeah.
So you know, everyone diversifies. The next thing you know, we haven't got a syllabus anymore.
Going to the press down, or the strike, and I say press down because it's easy for you to appreciate, I think, the movement if you say, oh, you're pressing down on the kick, because you start to develop those wrists, whereas you say it's a strike, people just
knock June.
Whoa. What do you mean, knock June?
Knock June. Pressing down.
Mr. Newbie, me. Did you go in geek mode then?
I did. I went in geek mode.
Geek mode. Narkja.
Yeah.
Is that what it is? Narkja. Yeah.
Press.
Jorma Narkja. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So explain to people, obviously explain to them.
Well,
how we're creating energy with it.
Okay, so if your instructor has had you doing wrist press ups, okay, so you are, pressing press ups on your wrist, and then he gets you doing palms, so you're doing palm press ups, okay, push ups, whatever. Then you are making a huge amount of flexibility in the wrist, so that you can literally create more energy with that movement, rather than pull it back to slap. You are literally loading and let go into that energy.
Wasn't there a story of Master Yo's grandfather, who someone said, "Can you know kung fu? Show me kung fu." And he went something like that. He did that. He said that if you knew how good that was.
Yeah, it's just a demonstration that people do. Maybe martial artists get together and they get up off the table and they do a little bit. They ask people to do stuff, so they go through all these forms and stuff. And Master Yo's he got up and he stood there and he just went like that, kind of thing. He just went like that and then walked off. and then they go, is that it? And he says, well, if you didn't know how good that was, no point in showing you anything else. I like that story.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. So it's a creation of energy. So pressing down. Yeah. And then, of course, so you're pressing down one technique, striking at the kicking leg, the left kicking leg, and then straight away he does the right leg, and you're striking sideways, like in number one.
You have to be a bit more sort of specific when you say you're striking the kicking leg, because you've got two pressing palms.
Well, you've got the most forward one is going to strike above the knee.
Right.
And remember, whenever you do a kick, the knee is the first thing to lift, or rather the thigh, I should say.
Yeah.
So the thigh is the first thing to move. What's the slowest thing? The thigh. What's the first thing?
The fastest thing is the foot. The slowest thing is the foot.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So you strike the first thing that moves. Before the kick is created with the fastest part of the leg, that's the foot. You're striking the slowest part of the leg, which is the first thing to move. So if it's the first thing to move, hit it before the rest develops. Otherwise, you're going to have a lot more of a fight on your hands, trying to fight a much faster and much more powerful element of the leg, the foot, or even the shin. You're stopping it above the knee. You stop it above the knee, you curtail everything. Plus, of course, it's a really nice target. Striking.
It's not uncommon actually to see it in a lot of modern semi-contact competitions, and I say that, like, you'll see people not obviously using both hands, but just the one. They'll be waiting for that, and then they'll sort of press down and do a reverse punch, into the midsection. And it's the same sort of, it's the same thing what you're saying, they're waiting for that leg to, and then they're countering. But obviously that's done for speed,
But it is fast. I mean, all kung fu is done for speed. So
what I mean is, there's no emphasis on the knock. It's just touch it. Do you see what I mean? So it's like
because when you've got gloves on, it just prevents movement of the wrist.
Yeah.
So that's why traditional aspects are so important to maintain. And if you don't maintain the traditional aspect and you end up as a competitor, it's very difficult to maintain both. But it can be done as long as you train both, but you can't train one for the benefit of another necessarily.
Yeah. No,
of course, they're interlocked, so
absolutely
interlaced with variants.
Yeah.
But obviously, you need an open hand to understand that. Yeah. And of course, the next technique is the palm, as in the second palm in the first set.
Yeah.
And as you do that, of course, the lower palm, you're striking the side of the thigh now. So you've hit the top of the one thigh, the left leg. Now you're hitting the side of one of those, quadriceps. You're hitting the side of that next leg, just like number one.
Yeah.
So that's 2 strikes, 3 strikes, and you're out.
Three noises or whatever. Yeah.
3 strikes, you're out. That's it.
With just just quickly going back to the NARC journey. Would you sort of acknowledge that the forward hand, the one that's forward, plays more of a part than the rear one, so to speak?
Yeah, because it's the closest.
Because it's closest, but also, the rear one, because you're striking that, above that knee at the slowest point, that means that the kick itself doesn't have time to fully develop.
Yeah, that's right. But if you see, obviously my wrist goes further than my leg, and my knee would only go to there, right?
Yeah.
So if the leg's coming up and I strike this, and that goes like that into my other hand, I can then use that to pull it, and it's just like grabbing a wrist. Yeah. So you just do the same with the shin. So you press, and you can continue that. So you struck, and then you can pull.
That rearward hand,
or rotate it, so you turn him around, and then it's a foot throw then. But that's nothing to do with the kick block.
That rearward hand, is that kind of like as a safety measure, if you like?
It's an additional option. Yeah. Well, it's.
But what I'm asking you is, that most people go, "Oh, you're striking them, twice."
Yeah.
Most people will think both hands are striking above the knee.
You're not going to get that close.
No, you're not.
No. So the one hand is important. The other one is to cover or to grab.
Yeah.
And remember, you wouldn't be striking the shin with your palm. Shin is the
no
only part of the shin.
Like
you're hitting
an elbow. It's like
exactly. So you're hitting the top above the knee. That's a nice soft area to hit with a palm. But if you if you envisage hitting the shin with your palm, it's not going to do a lot to the shin. It's going to hurt a lot more, because the shin's going to be coming up pretty quick.
Yeah.
So you're trying to slow that down. But if the shin does then come up, it's only ever going to come up as far as the knee. It's never coming any further unless you break it. So it comes up to there, and now it's in a position that you can actually, you can hit it, but it's never going to be as hard a strike because you've stopped it at that point. Right. So as it comes up, it's there. Now you can actually utilize it to either pull that way, twist that way, and whatever. So you're just basically then you could drag him to the ground, for instance, pull him on that leg. So you've got the shin, but remember, you don't have to stop at the shin and grab. You've got the ankle at the bottom. So remember, just shaped like an arm. Well, you might stop it there, but then you end up grabbing the ankle. Yeah. Do you follow me? So once you've done that, you're sliding back, remember?
Like
so you're sliding back, dragging it. Yeah.
Which knife defense is it where because the bone tapers, you find yourself grabbing it? But, what one is it? It's 4, isn't it?
Well, there's a few of them, I think. 4 and 5.
When you basically stopping at the wrist, aren't you? To a point.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? Because it down.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah, but it's the same with the leg.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's the same.
Yeah.
Oh, Mr. Newbie. Oh,
yeah. So sorry. So and also you're going to ask me what's the biggest fault that people have?
Yeah.
Go on, then ask me.
What's the biggest fault people have?
In number 5, it's always going to be distance.
Right.
They're always standing too far away. When they consolidate their position, they're actually stepping backwards. Don't step backwards. Just consolidate your stance.
Right.
Stay close enough to be able to strike that knee.
Yeah.
Because the leg's not going to kick you if you hit the knee.
So looking for a reason why people might move back and extend the distance, I suppose in some way are they thinking, well, because both my hands are low, I've got to worry more about my head being exposed, so I'm going to try and go back further.
That would be definitely a thing that you have to concern yourself. But remember, this is only a vehicle. This is just an example. Yeah. So you're not supposed to use it in reality. You only use the technique in reality. And that would, again, going back to our earlier argument, totally be defined by the situation. So if you are going to have your head next to someone, that's why it's important to consolidate your stance and keep your body straight. Yeah. If you lean forwards, you're making his fist longer.
Yeah.
And you're making your target closer.
Right.
So it's much more important to sit back, which is why people are trying to do those, bending those legs in those stances.
Yeah.
You know, particularly number 4 we talked about, where they went right back.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, so again, it's down to situational. You know, are they going to kick you? Are they throwing their arms back when they kick up? Because a lot of people do. But very few people in a street fight will actually keep their guard up like that when they kick. Well, they'll kick, they'll throw their body backwards, and that tends to be a good opening. But often you're so close that you have the upper hand in the sense that you are bang and then straight back up again. Totally depends on where the hands are.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But like you said, you know, you can analyze these until the cows come home. But
that's right, because every single situation will be different. You've got to apply it for the right time, for the right reason, at the right time.
So
to the right person as well.
Yeah. Going to the Fing Choi, the whipping punch. I've always interpreted that, and maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems to me, you know, it's a tiny bit like in terms of the motion, a hook, a tiny bit. Now, I'm not saying it is, but what I mean by that is, you don't have to do it with a straight hand, do you? You can bend around the guard.
No, yeah.
So if your guard's up or whatever, that arm can kind of fold around, if you like. And of course, the hook can do the same thing. If you're protecting the center, of course, it's going to come around. But, you know, it's... but I suppose it's a slightly longer range than the hook, isn't it? Because you're not made of fist. You've extended your knuckle.
Yeah, but it's like a very small area to hit as opposed to a large fist area like a hook.
Yeah.
So it's a small area to hit. So you're looking at split,
getting those eyes and stuff. Yeah,
teeth.
Where the skin is thin, sort of.
Yeah, the lips are really. It's about pain.
Yeah,
that kind of technique is about imposing pain, impressing pain on people, and they go, "Ow."
They're quite sharp when you think about these knuckles.
Well, if you imagine it hitting their lip, smacking their lip against their teeth, and that's going to smart.
Yeah.
And so you are kind of trying to slow them down. Well, of course, once you've done that, why not do a hook? Why not do an uppercut? Why not do a finger strike? Why not do
anything?
A headbutt? Yeah. So it is about, you must not be confined to the element of the technique itself.
Yeah.
You have to place the technique in an environment where it will work. And that's usually a good response to something, but you must then continue the fight. Because once you've started the fight, you must end it. So it isn't about going bang and then stepping out, right? You cannot do that. In the kick blocks and hand blocks, of course you do, because it's a learning process. But of course, when you learn it, this is why we talk about sets, where people will do a set in the big ABC, and then they forget that if they actually did the movements, it would be double writing.
Yeah.
And this is the same with a kick block or a hand block. So if you were to do it in a constructive way, not just as in a training way, but now you've learned it, let's do it fast. So you go bang, smack, whack, pull the head round, you know, or try to get them down on the ground, or try to pull that leg down, you know. So you might Fing Choi, you know, but you still could grab that leg if you wanted to. Do you know what I mean? Or grab that leg and you would finish there without even getting to do the Fing Choi. So it's totally dependent on how responsive the other person is, or how good you are at being able to trap that leg.
Yeah. You say this quite often, don't you, when we talk about hand blocks and kick blocks? You go off on you could do this and then after, and that's because of this technique, because of that, you know. It's like,
but they have got to be open. It's like the alphabet is not 26 letters.
Yeah.
It's a million words.
Yeah.
And that's how you have to look at the alphabet. Because if you look at the alphabet, you'll never spell anything.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And that's what martial arts is.
I think it's a point that you always sort of reinforce, though. But
yeah.
But at the same time, you've got to acknowledge, like, it is just syllabus we're talking about.
It's just a vehicle.
Yeah.
But you remember, you're driving that vehicle.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
So you can either drive to school every day, or you can literally drive anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
It's up to you.
Yeah. Any other finishing points on number 5?
No, just do try to kick them. Do try to kick them.
Yeah.
It is really a kick to the groin.
Right.
that's the most natural thing people will try to do. They'll try and kick you to the groin. That's most natural.
Yeah.
So let them kick you to the groin, and that actually gives you the opportunity to be closer.
Right.
Because they've got to be close to kick you to the groin.
Right.
Simple. So
well, I've got a...
no one in reality is ever going to kick you higher than that.
Yeah. Well, is that a definite, Mr. Newby?
No, there's no such thing as definite.
I thought I'd try and trick you there.
That's right. But the thing is, you see, someone might kick and their leg might go flying in the air. It was intended to go to your groin, but your groin wasn't there anymore. So the leg just goes straight up because they made the effort.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
It's never a time where people just kick and stop like they do with the training. So don't do it. Don't do it.
Yeah.
Of course, you've always got to protect your partner. So there's a limit to what you can do.
Right.
So it's always a good way to teach them how to protect their groin, you know, by having their stance correct, rolling the hips forward and being able to be kicked in the groin.
Oh,
but a lot of people don't understand that.
Oh, I got a good question for you. It just came to me, and it's more of a point and a point of view. Or so a while back we had a question from someone, and they sort of suggested that when you do number 5 kick block, they were taught to, you know, if you press out your palms and extend, you've got like a V between your thumb and your index finger. Okay, and they were saying, oh, this is called a valley, right? So in the middle, okay? And they were suggesting that, I don't think they were suggesting, I think they've been taught a version of this. They were suggesting that when you press down, you align the valleys, yeah? Now, obviously, we can look at that and go, hang on, you're going to break your thumb if they, you know, on your knee and etc.
You're just going to lose both. You're going to lose one or both thumbs.
Yeah. So when we say valleys, or this person has been taught this by someone, what's your interpretation of valleys? Why do you think they would have been taught?
Well, it's just someone's interpretation of it. But if you're striking, you know, if you've got your thumb available and you understand where your thumb is, that's fine. I mean, some people might be taught to keep their thumb stiff, but then having a stiff arm is never a good thing when you're striking anyway. So you'll get used to having your hand, as long as you know where your thumb is and where the leg's going to be, that's fine. And then from that position, then turn, you know, from that position, then turn, but don't go like that directly, because all will happen is you're just basically getting a shin straight in between that valley, right? And that's it, and that's going to hurt.
I think that's a fair point, but the point you made there was, as long as you know where your thumbs are. Yeah. Because it's like, I call it Laugar thumb, because when you first learn, you're always tucking your thumb in, aren't you? And, you know, and watch it.
Yeah, but never for a palm strike, okay, because it's in the way.
That's what I'm saying.
You might do that for an edge of a palm.
Yeah, you would, because it tends.
It's different. Yeah, it tensions it. Same as you're pulling your big toe up when you do a side kick.
Yeah,
some do.
Yeah.
You know, but in modern times, you do that, it's not going to make a great deal of difference if you've got a pair of shoes on.
Yeah.
So, you know, turning the edge of your palm against this side of your foot, rather, against a technique with your shoes on, is likely, because of the thickness of your sole, to twist your wrist, twist your ankle, I should say. Yeah. So therefore, it's always better now to tend to use the heel. So people tend to use the heel more, because shoes are different. Traditional techniques have to change for that reason, because the attire we wear, you know, there are a lot of things that might be very good when you've got big, long traditional sleeves and mandarin suits on. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Didn't you tell me a story of some guy who was drinking tea or something, and his sleeve was hanging down?
Yeah. And, so he couldn't see.
That disguised the punch that he
bang. Yeah. That was something Master had taught us.
Oh, was it? Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like bang, dead.
Yeah.
Temple.
Oh, Dimac.
Well, if you want to call it Dimac, you can call it whatever you want. Basically,
no, I wasn't calling it Dimac.
No. I know.
So, but what I was saying about Laugar thumb, it's like, I don't know whether it was you said that Master Yao, Laugar thumb. Master, Laugar is that.
Okay.
Tai Chi is that. The thumb. But like you said, though, it's not, but like you said, when you realize and you're aware of your thumb, it doesn't pose an issue, so to speak. Like, you know.
No, it's like when you're a young. Well, I was young and we didn't have any pads when we did any fighting. So you would just have your hands nice and loose and you would throw a punch and your fingers would be quite loose and you constantly staved, in Scottish stubbed your thumb.
Right.
Maybe they had their elbow up or something and you would try to get your fist in to strike and you would stub your thumb and you'd always go home with a really swollen thumb because you caught it on their elbow.
Yeah.
You know, so, and then you'd have loose fingers and all this, like, because you're just trying to fight nice and loosely.
You thank Bruce Lee for that.
Yeah, that's it, yeah. So, yeah, you would have a lot of injury, but you very quickly learned that when you punch someone, you better make a good fist. Same with kicks. People would do lots of front kicks, but they would be lifting the leg up, and as very quickly learned to put your elbow in the way because you would have people would have trainers on and you would end up with trainer prints on your arm or on your chest or on your stomach. So you quickly learn to put your elbow in, which is you see me when I did a little bit of fighting with you. We're doing sticky hands and I put my elbow there. Yeah, and that's to stop people kicking because they go, ow. I think there's a video of me doing that with you where I put my elbow there and it caught your shin because I don't want to be kicked. So I put my elbow there and that's a really good way to stop people kicking. And it kind of, it's not, you don't have to do anything. It's the power of their kick. So you put the elbow there and then what do? They don't want to kick anymore because it hurts. So now they're limping. Now it's harder for them to fight.
I tell you what, I remember I broke a toe at a competition.
Yeah.
With that. And I from that day on, I hated front kicks.
Yeah, that's right. Because people kick upwards.
Yeah,
that's right. Whereas they should lift it and push it out and stamp it, which is there's your stamp instead of your ball of your foot. You know, kick the groin is great because it's quite low, so it's harder to block with your elbow. But you know, kicking to the shins is brilliant because there are no blocks, but then they block with their legs. You know, they have to move their legs or they have to block with their legs. So there's all sorts of ways around it.
That's why I like the old sidekick me. Gotta like the sidekick.
But I think we have to remind people that a sidekick is to the side, a front kick is to the front.
Well, you didn't ask me which way I was facing, Mr. Newbie.
No, of course, you would probably be turned sideways if you didn't semi-contact. Simply because semi-contact is sideways so that you don't get hit so much. Hiding as many targets as possible.
So I was doing a sidekick?
Yeah.
Just saying. I'm sorry.
And from the front leg.
Yeah, I saw.
To make it quicker.
I like teasing you.
No, but a lot of people like to do side kicks from behind, and they bring it up, turn around, then do the side kick, and then pull it back. Yeah. By then, they've gone home for dinner. They've come back to block you.
You mean like in the syllabus we're talking about?
But it's a training method. Remember?
I'm just making the argument because, you know, you've got to criticize it. You've got to criticize it.
No. I'm just defending my perception of it.
Yeah.
Let's go on about the other one then, number 6. Okay, that's a really weird one.
All right, we're getting bored there. Sorry, Mr. Newby. I didn't mean to bore you.
We've finished number 5, haven't we?
Well, you know, I think so. Didn't mean to bore you. So, Mr. Newby.
Come on, I got to go to work tomorrow.
Number 6.
Yeah.
What's that about? Tell me about it.
It's the opposite way around, isn't it? Just a right front kick and a left, side kick, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay, so same techniques essentially.
Well, that's just exactly what you talked about.
Yeah.
Right, front kick, then a side kick, but from the back leg. Very primitive, basic technique.
Yeah.
Okay, teaching them to do a side kick, teaching them to twist their foot on the floor.
Yeah.
When you twist your foot on the floor, the side kick gets closer.
Yeah. It's a range. But that's not to say you can't do a side kick without twisting your foot. It's just you won't have the range. You'd be faster, but you won't have the range.
Yeah, but there's no good being fast if you can't reach it.
No, absolutely, but I'm just saying we never limit it, do we?
No.
In the context of this, turn your foot out.
You've got to twist your foot in order to get to the range. And so, of course, as you get to the range, they are going to move. They're going to block it. They're going to spin out. So they're blocking the first one in exactly the same as number 5.
So
and then after that, they're going to block the other one exactly the same, but it's this time going to be the right hand. but now they're going to spin out.
Now, is it a spin, or can you get away with a step behind?
If you step behind, you've got to be careful that you don't step against the foot, because then you just fall over their foot.
Right.
Okay, so it tends to be lifting the leg and rotating around. And what it's really doing to help people train is, if you practiced it without a partner, so you were in a position where you block and then you rotated, what you got to do is lift the foot up,
Yeah.
spin,
Yeah.
and put the foot down in whichever direction you want to land.
Yeah.
So it's a really good way of going, okay, I'm going to land over there, spin, put your foot down, spin, put your foot down somewhere else, spin, put your foot down somewhere else. And it gets you to learn how to spin around.
It's like that. It's like the black sash walk, isn't it? When you can choose where you put your foot. I can't remember what it's called now. What's it? Jigma Tansa? I can't remember.
Jigma Tansa.
One of them,
Jigma Tansa.
Knock yourselves out. But you're basically choosing whether you put your foot on the outside or the inside.
Yes.
But
yes,
and it's that same similar thing. So as you turn around, if you focus on it, you can say, "I'm putting my foot there."
And of course, then you're going to do the double bridges, and it's a swinging bridge. So you're raising the person up. You're hoping to raise them up so that they can't kick. Okay, so they can't respond. So you're trying to rotate them off balance.
Right. So So you're not actually saying, "I'm going to lift him up," but you are.
No, you're trying to lift him up. Their weight,
their center of gravity is.
Yeah, and then you're doing the punch underneath.
Yeah.
But your punch underneath is aimed directly at the spine.
Right.
So you've really got to try and punch the spine, bone to bone.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, and so you've pushing and striking them.
So
this is stopping their elbow from turning, the shoulder turning, and this will stop the other shoulder from turning. So you can feel them as you're doing it, rotate and strike.
So just so we're clear, whereabouts on the back are you sort of close to the top?
Shoulders,
really,
shoulder blades.
Okay, so it's basically you. And why is it called double bridge? What's that about?
It's one bridge, second bridge.
Okay, well, flipping heck. Could you help me out, Mr. Newbie? I mean,
first gate or bridge.
Right, which is the what? Because we have got listeners.
Second gate or bridge. Oh, wrist.
Yes, is the first gate.
Yeah.
And that thing
second
is
gate,
an elbow.
Yeah. And this is called a shoulder. Third gate.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's basically it. So and it's called swinging bridges because it's rotating as it goes.
Right.
The more rotation, the more energy. If you just go like that, that's no good. You've got to rotate it.
It's a rotation.
Rotate it into position. Whether you keep it as a fist or not, it's up to you. The's no point because you're not going to use it. So basically, you can open it if you want to. Feel the force, Luke. Feel the shoulder. Feel them. If they want to turn this way, you'll stop them. If they want to turn the other way, stop them because they're now they've got their back to you.
Yeah.
Punch to the spine.
Right.
And that hurts a lot.
Yeah. Here's a question for you. Right. Is the double bridge in that hand block the same as back pie journey at the start?
No.
What about what aren't you doing?
Well, that's not two bridges. That's
no, I'm not
one
so,
block.
no, for God's sake.
You asked.
The movement.
It's not the same.
Why could you not be? Why could I not be? All right. Let me. All right. Yeah. If I'm moving their chin, I'm
it's
pressing
still one hand.
on them.
Yeah.
Is it not the same as pressing on the back?
Yeah. Okay. You can. Yes.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Newby.
I love the way you elaborate. And yes, you can, but people will argue, well, no, it's not the same technique because we're talking double bridges.
All right.
We're not talking.
All right.
The final movement.
Right. So
we're talking in the element. Hang on, I've got to defend myself. In the element of the two movements, this is all about the rotation of both the elbow and the wrist in complying or performing against the back.
Right.
But in that movement of back pie journey, nothing complies to it, only the palm. So therefore, it isn't. You can't say so much that it's the same technique.
Oh,
however,
technique. Oh, I didn't mean the same technique.
So of course, Sir New Q.
Yeah.
double swinging bridges, that's exactly what you're doing, so new cue. Whereas that is an upper block. It's a different kind of process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
it's related. You can
Yeah.
see it's related.
And that was what I was getting at. Now, that relation is what we were talking about earlier on. Because when you say, if you look at that, and I can make that sort of connection, if you like, because it's similar.
It's very similar.
I'm not saying it's the same, but if you've got someone who says, it's an entirely different move, it's it's like
there's not a lot of moves that are entirely different.
Yeah, well, that's what you said earlier on. How many times do we repeat the same move?
Yeah, that's right. But that is not a great example because they are done differently. I mean, you are talking about two bridges. So you are talking about rotation and an emphasis on the elbow.
Right.
Whereas in that sense, it's an emphasis on the blocks and to press.
But that's if I'm using, I could be across the front of the body instead of...
Well, if that's the case, then it is a totally different technique and therefore it becomes swinging bridges.
Right.
But then you won't be, I mean, you could do that and then lift it and do it.
Well, there you go. That's what I meant then.
Oh, well, you're making it up as you go along.
I learned from the best.
Desperately trying to justify your question.
You're desperately trying to tell me that you said I was wrong, and then you agreed I was right, and now you're turning around on me again.
I'm feeling sorry for you. I'm just trying to help you out there.
All right. Okay.
The simple fact is, one is double bridges, the other one is a bloody.
So, is there any similarity, Mr. Newby?
They look the same.
So there is similarity. Is there any similarity?
Only in looks. It's only in looks. There's a similarity between.
Well, I'm doing that.
There's a similarity between this and this, but they're not the same.
I'm not said they were the same because I never used absolute.
Yeah, good. There's a similarity between this and this, but they're not the same. Yeah. So
So there is a similarity. Is that what you're saying?
Uh-huh. So today...
I'm joking.
Yeah. And don't forget, when we spin around, just to complete this information, when we spin around, we've got to learn to put that leg against their leg.
Yeah.
Because when you are hitting them and trapping them with that rotation and that spine, they're going backwards, but you've got your leg next to their leg. So it's almost like a foot throw.
Mm.
It can be a foot throw. Right. So that totally depends on when you've finished, whether you're going to use that open palm to grab their shoulder, press on their knee, press your knee on the back of their leg and just drag them down. And this free arm, you can pull their face. Right. So again, that's nothing to do with the actual technique itself. It's just a diversion of.
Yeah. Right. Talking about the going to the end of it, right? The step out. So the person who's been attacked or whatever, we're stepping away from them, aren't we? Just to finish, to gain that distance.
Yeah. We'll always just step out. Yeah.
Just step away, and then we withdraw, return to a fighting posture. Or whatever.
Yeah. So you're ready for the next one.
And same applies with number 5 as well, doesn't it?
So,
yeah. So okay.
That kind of completes them all, doesn't it?
I think so. Yeah. I don't think there's much. Well, is there anything else we can say? No, I think that's it.
No, I think that's it. I think that's the best description I can give. But remember, they're always vehicles. There's always things you can add. There's always things you can, emphasize. As you said, you can emphasize certain things, and it is down to the individual. I mean, a smaller person would obviously far more likely to do that. A taller person may well be able to go, up there. And a shorter person may not. So and again, it totally depends on where their limbs are, where their face is. It's just, techniques are done against a moving target, and we have to understand that they will change because the movement changes, because the target changes. Yeah. So, but the technique itself has so many different uses. Right. So we can't say it's for this.
No. But at the same
initially,
time,
yes.
Initially,
give them an individual thing to practice, and then force them to question their own, assumptions.
Yeah.
And that's all about learning, isn't it?
Why do you think, going back to number 6, because I've just thought of something, a question.
Okay.
Why do you think that why would Master Yao have put the turn there? I mean, listen, what I'm saying is, why turn your back to someone when you're fighting? What's other than the reason you gave so you can focus on your leg and where to place it? But I could equally do that if I wasn't spinning around.
That's right, and then it would be a different kick block. So it's just a diversion of it. It's another version of it. It's just another option. Right. Create options, that's all, but discover the usefulness of them.
What I'm saying is, if you've got someone looking at that externally, they're going to think, well, why the bloody hell are you turning around like that?
Yeah. I understand that. But there are certain things that you would do. To give you an example, a Thai boxer could say that, and then you say, okay, so you've just done a big turning kick at the guy, you've missed him, and you've gone right the way around, and your back's facing him now.
Yeah, right.
So why do that?
Yeah.
There's different reasons for different horses for courses, eh?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, people have their own arguments for everything. Yeah. So, practice it, find out. But most importantly, practice it. And if you do practice it, you'll discover it. If you don't practice it, you'll never discover it. And you always argue about something you know nothing about.
I can tell you're getting cheesed off talking about this now, aren't you? Look at your face.
I'll tell you what I'm cheesed off with.
It's like a slapped ass.
We're
talking about this, James.
No, what time is it there?
It's 3:30 in the morning.
Well, it's 7:27 here, and I've got to go out at 7:30 because I promised Shaki I would take her out because it's Father's Day, and she said she'd take me out tonight.
Well, far be it from me to interfere with your marriage. We're going to end there then. Thank you, Mr. Newbie. That sort of rounds it off nicely. Guys, if you enjoyed that, please, head over to
this James. This is fear.
Oh, is it fear? I've never known you to be fearful, Mr. Noobs. But
you don't know my wife.
Nope, I'm not going there.
Yeah, I had to take her out for dinner the other day, didn't I? I told you because I stole a coffee.
Yeah,
she'd left a coffee on the side, cold in the morning. I went to take it. I heated it up in the microwave. Took it with me, a takeaway coffee. I took it with me. She sent me a text. Who's nicked my coffee?
It's a cold Tim Hortons on the side. It's like you've discarded it. As soon as that coffee goes cold,
it's discarded.
It's discarded. Huh?
Well, it cost me $40.
Anyway, guys, well, thank you so much for joining us, everybody. If you like that, go over to Facebook, give us a like. You can follow us on Podbean, on iTunes, and of course on YouTube. If you go on YouTube, subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell and whatnot. We'd like to thank you very much for joining us for another, dreary episode of the Kung Fu Podcast. But we'll be back
I think it was
soon.
an exciting one. I think it was quite exciting, actually.
Good, wasn't it?
And you know what? We talk technical all the time. No
Did
bitching.
That's true.
No bitching. That should be in the title. No bitching.
I'll make sure it's in the title. Guys, thanks ever so much. My name is James Still. And as always, I'm joined by my teacher, Mr.
Me.
And that's Q. Q-U. Who
Steve.
are you?
Steve the noob.
Noob.
Yeah.
Newbie.
And anyone who trained with me in the early 80s before I got married, my name was Evans.
Oh, like that. No, it's Evans, isn't it?
Evans.
It's not,
is
it Welsh? That's not. I mean, it's
yes,
Welsh name, but...
yes. Evans. It's Welsh for John.
Oh, right. Okay.
Apparently.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah, Evans. But it's like we decided to change my name to a newbie because we thought Evans is really so common in Birmingham, and then we went to Scotland to live.
Oh, that's the door going. Is that the door going? I've got to go.
I've got to go. I'm going.
You're telling us an anecdote. Right, guys, take care. See you soon. Bye-bye. Say goodbye. Say goodbye.
Bye. Happy days. Happy Father's Day. Yeah.
Enjoy it. Bye-bye.
Concentrate on your enemy's weak points. The eyes, the throat, the knackers.
Hi guys, thanks so much for joining us on the Kung Fu Podcast. If you like that and you want to find out more about us, you can head over to Facebook, Twitter, Instagram or YouTube and find us under SJN Martial Arts. And also guys, this podcast is available on Podbean and iTunes. So until next time, take care of yourselves and we'll see you again on the Kung Fu Podcast.
Karate punch is like an iron bar, whack. A Kung Fu punch is like an iron chain with an iron ball attached to the end and it go whang.
Can you break a log like that?
Don't know. Never been attacked by a tree.
If you're not a guardian, shut the f*** up.